Greetings, students. I'm Dr. Sadri, your instructor for this course. In continuation of introducing some of my own research, since a number of students have been very curious about that, I have done publication, as you know, in both, in terms of both themes of IR, or international relation. I've done publication in terms of, security studies, focusing on the notion of war, the causes of war, how to, deal with that. And then also I have done some research focusing on what is known as peace studies. As you know, the field of international relation has two general themes: conflict, cooperation. So the studies associated with conflict, they end up being called like security studies. Now, sometimes security studies are very general, global security, regional security, security in a particular area, or focusing on a particular organization like NATO, is that right? Or sometimes, what they focus on is on the cooperation. When you focus on cooperation, then you would deal with what? Peace studies. And a lot of the peace studies involves different ways to peacefully manage a conflict. Is that right? Now, remember, we are dealing with human behavior, and conflict is very natural to human behavior. Sometimes we have conflicts, and disagreements with some of our loved ones, our parents, our siblings, our significant others, our best friends, So that is not abnormal, okay? That's completely normal. So conflict is completely normal in human relation, but the issue is, how do you deal with it? How do you manage it? And one main issue has been that, we cannot completely solve any problem, because human problems are very different from, mechanical problems. They're different from electronic problems. Your cell phone has a problem, is that right? You take it to a cell phone repair person, hopefully he's under warranty, is that right? Because otherwise it's going to cost a lot of money, okay? And then they check each one of the circuits and see which one of the circuits is not working. They change that circuit, and then here we go, the problem solved, okay? Your phone is going to work as well as it used to when it was, brand new, okay? Here we go. Your car has a problem, is that right? You take it to a mechanic, they identify where the problem is, what the problem is, and then they use some new parts, charge you for part and the labor to put it on, and then the problem is what? Resolved. Unfortunately, human problems are like that. Is that right? Because no matter what type of issue it is, you can come out with policy, which is basically a political science, terminology referring to some kind of answer. Is that right? To the problem. So you can come up with that one, and then even, let's say, even if 90% of the population are happy about this, or the audience that you're targeting it are happy, there are going to be 10% who are not going to like it. So I guess the rule basically has been, how could we come up with policies that we minimize the number of unhappy faces? That has been one of the issues. So coming from a country that was, basically went through revolution, and I've studied revolution and conflicts and everything else. First part of my life has been studying conflicts, security studies, and then little by little, I got a chance to have that opportunity for some workshops dealing with the notion of peace studies, and then I noticed certain countries are much better in terms of peace studies than some others. So with a colleague, actually she used to work for UCF before she retired, Professor Madeleine Flamia, from the English department of UCF, we ended up a few years ago working on this project together. And this is called Intercultural Communication. Has a kind of long, secondary name: A New Approach to International Relation and Global Challenges. So what was our purpose? The purpose was pretty much like what I was just describing to you, that this type of work focusing on the notion of, conversations, negotiations, communication, they all fit into the idea of managing a conflict in a civilized fashion. Before you start sending your generals and tanks and planes to bomb the hell out of somebody else, the nice thing would be what? To negotiate with them. Is that right? So that's the place for the diplomats. And this is not really limited nowadays to only diplomats. Very frankly, I'm sure you know that a lot of these, global corporations, or what we call MNCs, multinational corporations, they travel. They don't limit themselves to US or Europe. They go all over the world. So when they go all over the world, the developed countries, the developing countries, sometimes they end up with what? Some situations that, involves, they need to be a little bit more aware of some of the factors that is way beyond their control. So to be able to successfully negotiate and create what, in business they call win-win situation, is that right? So we noticed that when Professor Flamia and I, we finished this book, we noticed we're getting some calls to do some consulting activities for some businesses. We did some for Disney a few years ago. We have done some for some government agencies. We have done some for some universities and some for different type of programs, etc. So it has led us to do a lot of different type of things, and I still continue doing that. She has retired and decided to go ahead in a different direction. It's completely understandable. While I'm still working, for UCF, and then for nonprofits like IPAC, I'm going to continue that type of help for any organization that needs it. Generally speaking, when you're talking about that one, what we did with this book was we divided to 4 major parts. We started with what they call fundamentals of intercultural communication, and then under that one, of course, we talked about the significance, we talked about the major concept. Then we focus a whole part on a second part on the approaches, or what you call theories. Is that right? So we talked not just about the history of intercultural communication, but also about the social science and interpretive approaches, also the critical and dialectic approaches, And then the third part, we focused on intercultural communication processes and techniques. In this regard, we focus on topics such verbal communication, non-verbal communication, believe it or not, like about 60-70% of our communication with others is non-verbal without using any kind of word. So body language becomes very important. Then visual communication, then mass communication for students who are interested in working for mass media, newspapers, etc. And the last part of the book basically focus on issues associated with intercultural communication. One of these are ethical issues, ethical and moral issues, which are very important, and of course the notion of what? Global citizenship. So, having said that one, in fact, the book got really a lot of, fortunately, a lot of wonderful comments from a number of UCF administrators and a number of other academicians, in addition to other areas. As usual, remember, I don't expect you to buy any of my books, okay? I don't want you to buy books. You could, just basically Google the title of it, or you could Google my name, and then the book is going to show up. You find out what's a USB or something, ISBN for it, and then take that one to a library near you. If they don't have the book, what you could do is you can ask them. Most of the public libraries are very open to serve the community, and in that regard, simply all they want you to do is provide the name of the author and the book and everything. They order it, because many of these books are really priced too high, okay? I'm a strong believer of using your library. First of all, our UCF library has a number of these, copies of this book. I assume that's what they did, but a lot of also area local libraries have it. I've heard that actually libraries in other states have it as well. In fact, we were very surprised because we didn't plan this one. Several years ago in the International Studies Association conference, which is the largest professional organization for people who are interested in international relations, one time this graduate student from Spain comes and to meet me after one of my presentation in one of the panels, and he said, "Dr. Sadri, I really wanted to meet you." I said, "I'm sorry, I don't recognize you." She said, "Of course you don't recognize me. I'm not from the US. I'm from Spain. But I know about the book that you co-authored." And I said, "Which book was this?" I said, "Intercultural Communication." Our professor was teaching a course about international communication, and then she ended up using your book. So it was very pleasant. So I told Madeline, Professor Flamia, look, we didn't even plan this one, but apparently in some parts of Europe they're using the book in that regard as well. So I know that a number of other universities has used it. It has a material that talks not just about theory and concept and method. It actually talks about policies. We provide a lot of what? Real examples. And then I got, some contacts with some of the businesses, and that's how we got, we end up doing some consulting for the, Disney. Disney is obviously, it's a national company, but has an international audience, is that right? Actually a global audience, to be very honest with you. So they wanted to make sure that they are, packaging their ideas in such a way that they are not what? They are not, for example, being rude to somebody else. And the key concept in this book and project that we have used is the notion of mindfulness, which is not a notion we came up with, but we borrowed that one from the work of other scholars, and what we did was we applied it to show how it works in everyday life, in your, connection to your, family, your friends, to your what? To your work supervisors, to when you travel somewhere, to when you deal with government agencies, to everywhere, okay? So the notions are so general that applies, and, thank goodness, we are glad that the book was received so well. So if you're interested in the peace studies and negotiations and that type of stuff, that project can what? Help you. And it's very well, documented. So let's say, for example, you have a particular interest, let's say on verbal as opposed to non-verbal, or for example body language and this and that, you can use the bibliography which is in that to go further more in the areas you're interested. I hope this would be something that would come out handy for you, and that also addresses the request that I keep getting from a lot of students. Please introduce your own work. The only reason I do not really put my own work so much in my own courses is because you hear me talking about different things. I want you to be exposed to other people's ideas. I don't want you on the exams, this, that. According to Dr. Sadri. You know what I mean? No. I want you to read all these different point of views. That's why each one of our modules has what? So many different, articles and book chapters from different places. So you would be exposed to those ideas, and then you make up your mind. Is that right? Because remember, I'm an independent person. I do not, I don't want to make a Democrat or Republican or libertarian or fascist or communist or anything out of you. You need to develop individually, by yourself, by your own value system, priorities, moral and ethical values. Okay, thank you very much. If you have any question, you know how to get hold of me. Just send me an email. Take care.